Hey guys, it's Debbie Potts, and I wanted to do another video blog deep dive rabbit hole on how to improve metabolic health, metabolic flexibility, and how we need to individualize what we should be doing each day. As men and women are a little different, and our results we get from a metabolism test, as I do with Pinoe, is going to be different. So if you're watching the video, let me scroll up to the sample report on an exercise test. As I continue to talk about testing and not guessing, we'll talk a little bit today. I found some great articles on how to speed up your metabolism to lose weight from Lumen came in the inbox today. And Dr. Stacy Sims has a great article for women, how if you are fit and active female athlete, you may want to dive into this blog from drstacysims.com, as I think it's super important to look at. All carbohydrates are not bad, supplements, hormones, all that. She did have a post today, Stacy Sims did, on the importance of resistance training. And also today in my email inbox, I got, that was from Levels, had an article on fasted. And then this was my other one I got in the inbox today. Dr. Peter Attia, who everyone is listening to, his new episode, Optimizing Muscle Protein Synthesis, Crucial Impact of Protein Quality and Quantity, and the key role of resistance training. So I know Peter Attia in his book and his podcast talk about the pillars of health. Somehow social media has switched the focus to longevity on VO2 max and VO2 max testing and zone 2 training and HIIT training. Now, I use metabolism testing for clients if you want to come to Del Mar, California, San Diego, and test with me and come walk on the beach afterwards, as I just did Friday. We can test your VO2 max, but what I'm trying to get the point across, VO2 max is one part of the puzzle to improve the aging process. Even Peter Attia on his website, in his book, on his coaching program, it is just not the only thing. VO2 max, resistance training, and interval training. So when we do a Pinoe Meta, yes, it helps for athletes get a program, giving them the data and figure out a personalized program. If you are confused of how much you should eat, when, and why, workout days, non-workout days. If you are confused about what is the calorie intake per day, and you can see when we do your metabolism testing at rest, we can tell you, guess, range of where you are today on how many calories you're burning at rest, how much fat to carbohydrates you are burning. As we can tell with the RER, the respiratory exchange ratio of oxygen in, carbon dioxide out, calculates out to figure out, are you burning fat or carbohydrates? So your fat burning efficiency will help us figure out your metabolic health. Put that with your blood chemistry markers as A1C, your insulin, and your fasted glucose and some other markers, and then figure out how you should eat, how you should train. These are suggestions in a report, but also, looking at screen time, sleep, stress management. There's a lot of different things, not just looking at here's how many calories you need at rest, but let's add in exercise calories, your daily activity calories, a thermic effect of food, and having what calories you need right now, as well as testing your body fat composition, looking at your lean to fat mass, and increase your metabolism so you can burn more calories at rest, so you can improve fat burning. So part of metabolic testing, this is a resting test. The exercise report will look at your VO2 max or your VO2 peak, but we can also talk more about looking at how Your zone 2 is where you're burning the peak fat burning and looking at metabolic crossover point, and then figuring out what are your heart rate training zones, what is your focus going to be throughout the week for your workouts, looking at HIIT training versus sit training versus zone 2, but where does resistance training fit in? And if you look at the reports, this is a sample resting metabolism report. If we see that this person has slow metabolism based on their gender, age, height, weight, this is a horrible carb, fat, protein ratio, but what this person needs on workout days and non-workout days, I wouldn't go that high of carbs for most people. We know even Dr. Gabrielle Lyon talks about your protein, 1 gram of protein per pound of ideal body weight. And their carbohydrates are around 30 grams per meal, and 130 is average per day. But if you're athletes, you're going to add a little bit more here. And this is going to be individualized. This is just a sample report. So if we find that your metabolism, if we scroll back to the first page of the RMR report, we can find out, are you metabolically healthy? Where's your metabolic fitness? Resting RMR, fat burning efficiency, heart fitness is your heart rate variability, your low frequency versus high frequency. So low frequency is your sympathetic nervous system versus your high frequency is your parasympathetic nervous system. And then we have 3 markers for your breathing. So this is a report I get back, and then I individualize it even more for a client based on what they have been doing on their intake forms. Now, we can see if this sample report, example, Metabolic Fitness RMR. Now, if they're RMR, we scroll down to that page. Metabolic fitness is measured combining the RMR resting metabolic rate and the fat burning efficiency score. And if their resting metabolic rate could be improved, well, how is it measured? We go over here. It's based on estimated value generated by Harris-Benedict equation and comparing against the test result, the resting metabolic rate we find in the test. So we compare, and RMR value on this report is based on the demographic data of the subject and refer to predicted metabolic rate. But it's measurement of how fast or slow your metabolism. Now, how do you improve your metabolism? Okay, so here's an example of what we can look at. Strength training, important part of increasing metabolic rate. Eating protein, supporting your thyroid, Brazil nuts for selenium, seaweed for iodine, and interval training. Zone 4, zone 5 impacts your metabolism by promoting muscle development in untrained subjects and enhancing muscle development through the increase of growth hormone testosterone. Get this, endurance training has little to no effect on enhancing metabolic rate. Significant amounts of endurance training can even reduce metabolic rate due to effect of increasing movement economy. So research links are down here. You can look for. Now, so resting metabolic rate, if you do the resting test and you're not having as high as metabolism, we don't want to spend a lot of time doing cardio training, as we just went over. If your fat burning efficiency is not optimal, we can look at what that is. This represents your ability to burn fat as a fuel source at rest. I went over this in previous videos, what your RER is. 0.7, reflection of your high fat burning efficiency. 1.0 is more carbohydrate burning. Now, how do you increase your fat burning? Suggestions on this report say, while resistance training is critical for developing muscle mass and increasing metabolic rate, it has minimal effect on advancing mitochondria density and fat burning efficiency. Interval training, high intensity interval zone 5, that are 10 to 30 second sprint interval training, improves mitochondria density and fat burning efficiency. Interval types of low intensities have a more moderate impact. Endurance, low intensity steady state training as zone 2 is by far the most powerful mechanism for improving mitochondria function and enhancing fat burning efficiency. So you can see from even this sample to improve your fat burning efficiency versus to improve your metabolism and to improve your metabolic fitness, we want to do a combination of training as resistance training, strength, hypertrophy training are some of the most important modalities for increasing metabolic rate because they promote muscle mass development, reduce your movement economy, make your body burn more calories while moving. Interval training, as we said, zone 5 improves mitochondria density and high fat burning efficiency, the second factor affecting metabolic health. Interval types in lower intensities have a more moderate impact. And then endurance zone 2 training is far the most powerful mechanism for improving mitochondria function and fat burning efficiency. So we need a little bit of all strength, interval, and endurance. So we can figure out a client's optimal workout program when we do this resting test, figure out what their core metrics are, what they need to do to improve them. And then we do their exercise test. We can identify what you're doing great at. Like, for example, not to say like, I hate it when people say like in interviews or talking, high intensity performance. This example, this person does obviously a lot of interval training. They don't recover properly. So they do intervals, but they don't come all the way down to zone 1 and recover. So they're not doing them exactly correct. They have an area of opportunity to work on staying longer in their lower heart rate before they start the next interval. And we also see this person would need more focus on aerobic health, cardiovascular fitness to at least be up here. Good, excellent, right? So fat burning efficiency is pretty good, movement economy, metabolic rate. So then we can compare all this together. So this is the exercise test report, and this is the resting metabolism report. So you take this information and you combine it with research as Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, with Dr. Stacy Sims, Peter Tia, and looking at actually the person you're working with or you, client. What do you need to do based on this data? Not what Peter tells you or what social media is telling you to do, but let's test and not guess what you should be doing each week to improve your health. So this example, we can see biological age. It's not on this sample, but what they need to work on. And then we can figure out their training zones, how to improve the areas they're not working on. Now, I go over this with clients when I get the report back, look at what they have been doing. But again, it's really not designed, I think, just athletes. A lot of people say, oh, I'm not an athlete. I'm not training for anything. Aren't you training for life? Are you training for the sport of life, longevity, improve the aging process? How much time do we want to create resistance training a week, interval training, and cardio training? That is going to depend on what you're doing now and what your goals are, what your genetics are, and what does the results from these reports say, and what does your blood chemistry panel say. So do you need more time interval training, short, medium, long, base training, moderate, hard, cardio, resistance training, what type? Because this is all obviously important. We just went over how to improve metabolism, eating protein, prioritizing protein, resistance training. How do you improve your fat burning? How do you improve all these markers? We need both strength training, resistance training, strength training, whatever you want to call it, and then figuring out training zones. So yes, we want to get high as VO2 max as we can. Do you want to know what your VO2 peak is now? Because then you have baseline. So I don't think we should focus on testing so much just for athletes. I think if you are concerned about your future self, and if you really care about figuring out what to do based on data instead of guessing, let's schedule a test. Zone 5 in this sample report, zone 4, 3, 2, 1's recovery. So that's one part of the equation. Then we need to figure out how many calories you're burning, fat calories, you figure that out, then testing every few months. Okay. So how much time each week cardio? I don't think the info that we're getting from other doctors out there on how much zone 2 and HIIT training is too general. We need to work on you. So do I need 80% of my workouts a week to be zone 2 and 20% in doing zone 5? No. So we want to look at how my metabolism. And you can look at articles as lumen, the connection of metabolism and weight loss, but rather fat loss. How do you improve your metabolism? So a good article to look over, lumen. I don't have one, but it's a breath test. But this is what I'm doing for 10 minutes in a resting test. So it's not, my metabolic test is going to be, I think, a little more accurate data because it's a 10-minute test versus just a breath, one breath. But metabolic flexibility, we talked about this in my seminar last week, right? Metabolism linked to the engine that burns fuel. The rate at which your engine operates varies person to person, can impact your ability to lose fat weight. A higher metabolic rate means that your body burns energy faster, even at rest, adding in weight loss and preventing weight gain, fat loss, and preventing muscle loss, I would say. Instead, metabolic flexibility is ability to switch between carbohydrates and fats, primary energy source. High metabolic flexibility means that your body can efficiently burn fat when the carbohydrate intake is low, which is beneficial for weight loss. And then they say various factors can influence your metabolic rate and flexibility, including age, gender, genetics, hormonal balance, lifestyle choices as diet and exercise. So understanding these factors can help tailor your weight loss, fat loss, because I hate the word weight loss now because we really can't afford to lose muscle. So we only lose fat, increase lean muscle, and really identifying metabolic issues. So what can impact metabolic health? Being sedentary, poor diet of high in processed foods and sugars, disrupt the metabolic balance, chronic stress. I've talked about my story forever. Long-term stress can lead to hormonal imbalances that slow down the metabolism. Insufficient sleep. Quality of sleep is crucial for metabolic health. Lack of sleep can disrupt the hormones that regulate appetite and metabolism. Age and genetics. Your metabolic rate naturally slows down with age. Genetic factors can play a role in one health. So right there, age. What can you do? We can look at our reports, how to improve these markers. Don't blame the aging process. I say, let's improve it. So how do you improve this resting metabolic rate? Resistance training, eating protein, building more lean body mass. How do you burn more calories throughout the day and increase your fat burning efficiency? Zone 2, staying here, maybe it's once a week, enhances fat burning efficiency, cell health. How do you improve your VO2 max? Zone 5, enhancing fat burning efficiency and cellular health and fatigue threshold is improved. Zone 4 increases fatigue threshold, increases anaerobic threshold, improves VO2 max. How much time should you be spending up zone 4, 5? That is, more specifically, sprint interval training is zone 5. High intensity interval training is zone 4. But as I've said, Dr. Daniel Crumback, my mentor, Daniel Crumback, talks about you are not doing interval training if you're not coming back down here to your zone 1 before you come back up. So zone 4, that workout we were talking about, doing the VO2 max workouts as a 4x4 or the 10x1, you are zone 4, come down to zone 1, right? So we go over that when we review results. So going to Peter, talking about muscle protein synthesis is not just about zone 2. How to improve muscle health, as Dr. Gabrielle Lyon talks about, is not zone 2. That's how we improve VO2 max. How do you improve metabolic health? Have more muscle, larger suitcase for glucose disposal. How do you improve your metabolism? How do you improve your metabolic rate? So we need to look at a balanced workout program because this is age and genetics. We have a slower metabolism as you age. So looking at these factors that lead to poor metabolic health are important, but what can you do about it? A personalized nutrition program using a CGM as nutrisensor levels, but looking at what food works for you, what type of carbohydrates. You can do this with Lumen or looking at, and I'm not sponsored or even use Lumen, but it's just a good article on metabolic efficiency I like to share. But Lumen and NutriSense or CGM, say you use Levels and Lumen or NutriSense, you'll get an idea of what food works best in combination. So you are able to switch from burning fat to carbohydrates and manage your blood sugar. So if you're into tracking and want to do an N=1 experiment, try a CGM and try a Lumen breath test. And you can do my test if you come see me, but it's something you can do every 2 months. This is something you could do every day. And then we'll talk about Food Marble for SIBO testing foods. I'm interviewing them tomorrow. So we want to work on metabolic health. So that's going to include exercise, but what type of exercise? So yes, aerobic exercise, that's going to burn carbohydrates and fat. And then we want to, of course, do our strength training, HIIT training. But they're talking about lower intensity exercise as zone 2 burns higher percentage of fat. Because remember, I showed you how I figure out your zone 2 is your bottom of zone 2 is your peak fat burning zone. Top of your zone 2, when I test, is your metabolic crossover point. Carbs come up and fat goes down. So we can improve your mitochondria, get more of them in zone 2, and train your body to be more fat burning fuel, fat burning efficient. High intensity workouts do burn more calories overall. They're burning glycogen stores in muscle. So that combination will help fat loss. Anaerobic strength training, including weightlifting and HIIT training, uses carbohydrates, increases lean mass. So we need to increase that lean body mass to improve our metabolism. So the more muscle mass is a higher metabolic rate, right? So we need to trigger this muscle protein synthesis. We need to eat enough protein to stimulate this. So muscle protein synthesis. So that's why it's a great article. Lumen talks here about nutrition and more. So I just want to touch on that. Now let's finish up women. That's aging female athletes. We hear about fasting. We've been into keto. We've been into low carb. But all this sometimes backfires for us females that are getting older. So if you have low thyroid, you were doing fasting and doing fasted exercise, you were doing or are doing 1 meal a day. And that's kind of the big shift the last few years. It doesn't work as well. We're not all the same, but most people, as myself, I was doing OMAD years ago. I'm not just getting that muscle protein synthesis, that distribution of protein, especially morning and evening, that first and last meal of the day, as Donald Layman, Dr. Layman, and Dr. Gabrielle Lyon say, that should be the largest protein in the morning, first meal, whenever you eat. Say it's 12-hour fast from dinner to breakfast, and that should be hitting that 40, 50 grams of protein because we have been in a fasted state overnight, right? So women, fasting is sold to women as a golden ticket for health and wellness, Stacy Sims says. And for menopausal women, promoted intermittent fasting. She has the point for active women that exercise does help with your metabolism, metabolic diseases. Women are more sensitive to energy restriction than men. Big reason is a hormone. We've talked a few episodes over the years, kisspeptin. This is a neuropeptide that's responsible for sex hormones and endocrine and reproductive function. It plays a role in maintaining healthy glucose levels, appetite regulation, and body composition. This hormone kisspeptin is more sensitive in women. And when we stress our body too much, this hormone can get perturbed, then the sex hormones are not produced or released the way the body is supposed to be working. So I found this out a few years ago and started paying attention. Oh, my T3, my active thyroid is super low, really slow. I struggle to lose weight. It's not easy. And I wasn't losing weight doing my exercise program in the morning, fasted, being really strict with, dark black coffee, not putting anything in it, and not eating until 11 a.m., even though I worked out in the gym and maybe ran or biked in the morning, and then I go swimming, master swim, workout. That's intervals. Sometimes I work hard, sometimes I just take it easy. But I wasn't eating till like 11 and having something and then do another workout. So that was too much. And I'm sure I perturbed my hormones and caused, again, a relapse into more adrenal exhaustion and my hormones really low. So this is why I stress on my podcast, my platform, that fit and healthy aging athletes, we need to be careful on what we hear in mainstream media, what is beneficial for us to be metabolically healthy. If you're fit and active and you're a female, we need to tweak those adjustments and know that they're not the same. So intermittent fasting disrupts kisspeptin expression. Our brain perceives we have a deficiency in nutrients, especially carbohydrates. And when we have a marked reduction in kisspeptin expression, this is causing appetite dysregulation and can induce changes in circadian rhythm of our hormones. So then add an exercise for fit and active women when we layer in the stress of exercise. And I think she's more talking about not zone 1, zone 2 workouts, but these high intensity lifting. She does more CrossFit crowd. When you're doing heavy lifting and high intensity interval training, sprint training, this is another stress. And this is adding in stress on the body, fuel stress hormones, let's cortisol even higher. So this is an important point. And if you have dysregulated cortisol, as I had adrenal exhaustion starting in 2013, you can do a Dutch test to really see what's going on. You're elevated cortisol above optimal levels. And then over time, you get to be below optimal and you're just sluggish and slow and everything's slow. Now, as you keep increasing that stress, keeps your sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight, and you're constantly elevated. It reduces your ability to relax. So you're hyper cortisol, hyper adrenals. Your thyroid activity is depressed. When cortisol is elevated, your thyroid is put down, it's slower. So your thyroid activity is suppressed means this is messing with your hormones and your body starts storing more belly fat and you may experience more menopausal symptoms. Stacy Sims also says there's a myth going around that fasting increases estrogen when there's no evidence about it. So she talks about that fact and more about the hormones and DHEA. So in young, healthy women, changes in our hormones observed with the reduction of testosterone and DHEA, LH, luteinizing hormone, and leptin. And menopausal women get down regulation of our androgens as DHEA. And after menopause, all estrogens and almost all androgens are locally developed from tissues from DHEA. We see a downregulation of hormones such as IGF-1, which is important for bone density, and healthy active women should not look to fasting to improve hormone or metabolic income. So that's what the summary. Okay, another marker, should you stay in zone 2? This is what I keep trying to talk about. And nice, she put this all into one blog. Probably because I keep emailing questions to the crew at Stacy Sims on our team. Now, as I said, Peter Tia's website, you can see the blogs, the topics, zone 2 training. It's all the rage, right? If you go to YouTube, that's all that comes up. Aerobic and zone 2 training, it's one category. Zone 1 and zone 5 training, another category. But as I said, I know he does importance of protein and the intervals and strength training. But I think look at all these podcasts that he's had on this topic. So obviously it's hot and that's why it's buzzing everywhere. So for women, I wish Stacy Sims would go on Peter Tia and Huberman's podcast and Rhonda Patrick because they need to read Women Are Not Small Men. So women, Should you stay in zone 2? And I said this with my friend Stephanie, said, I don't agree with zone 2 80% of the time. So Stacy Sims talks about women. We're warned against doing hard training because it raises our cortisol and will lead to weight gain. This is counterproductive for women, active women. Okay, so here she says, for women, zone 2 training is a great active recovery and certain amount of base building for us endurance athletes and social exercise. But putting the focus on zone 2 training for women is not an ideal way to improve skeletal muscle mitochondria function, as I just went over on these other tests. This isn't where we need to be, right? We don't need to be all in zone 2. So Stacy's article, as we just went over, skeletal muscle mitochondria function, we need to improve. Increasing mitochondria expression, we want to improve fatty acid uptake and improving lactate clearance, which is zone 2. Women are not small men. She says females have better mitochondria respiration, mitochondria density, better than men. So we do not need 80% of our time, endless hours in zone 2. I knew that intuitively just because I started doing marathons when I was 29 years old and Ironmans when I was 29. So I've been doing this a long time because I'm 52. Now, what she says is what I've been trying to experiment myself the last couple of years. What we do need is to add high intensity work that's 10 to 30 seconds sprint interval training with zone 1 in between. We need that to improve our mitochondrial capacity and anaerobic capacity by the nature of the high intensity work. So remember, go back to this report. We don't need to spend all of our time down here for females. Men might need more zone 2. And I can see this when I do your fitness test. Do you need more time up here? Zone 5. Feels impossible to continue. Completely out of breath, unable to talk. These are short intervals. So Stacy Sims, from a performance perspective, high intensity training, short sprint intervals lasting less than 30 seconds are critical, not only to improve the lactate production and clearance, but also to stimulate the increase in fast twitch muscle fibers, type 2 fiber, which females have less of compared to slow twitch muscle fibers. We females have more slow twitch muscle fibers, type 1, than men. And what happens as we get older, ladies? You're fit and active. Maybe you're similar to me, but I feel slower. I don't have that get up and go all out sprint. I'm not great. It's my area of opportunity to improve my speed, to improve my get up and go. So I know intuitively I don't need to spend 80% of my time in zone 2. So I can test that, find that out. Where am I great at? Where are my area of opportunities? But I also can listen to my body and feel it when I work out. I'm not menopausal. Remember, menopause is 1 day in time. It's a year you've been without a cycle, and then the next day you're postmenopause. So high intensity interval training, sprints, not 1, 2, 3, 4 minute, like the 4x4 workout. 10 to 30 seconds is what she's finding. Sprint interval training can provide the metabolic stimulus to trigger the performance boosting body composition changes that our hormones helped us achieve in pre-menopausal years. So don't worry that you're not doing every workout in zone 2. I'll do that on a Saturday, and then my weekend workout, that's my longer days, say going for a nice long, fun, long run, walk if I need to. Just enjoy the time outside. I don't need to do it, but I like to do it. And then my weekday workouts are going to be more short and sweet. Quality over quantity. So same with swim workouts. We don't need to hit 3,500 meters in the pool, 4,000 meters. I'd rather do 2,000 meter quality workout, warm up, warm down, and do intervals. Go hard, recover. Okay, so carbohydrates, we kind of have that, and this is why Stacy Sims will not be on my podcast because it's low carb athlete. She doesn't want to be associated with that. So she won't be on my show ever. Like fasting, keto, low carb, 10% of your calories, and we're not low carb we're not very low carb. I am 100 to 130 gram. Some people can go up to 200 grams a day. This is more, I've never said to go 10% of your calories. That's why I don't like keto, very low carb. That's too restrictive for athletes, but uh, it doesn't matter. So promoting metabolic magic for menopausal women, that doesn't always work. So because we are more insulin resistant as we age and hormones, so her focus, remember, is for athletes. This isn't the metabolically unhealthy. So it could be bad fasting because it leads to low energy availability. This is what's happened to a lot of my clients I'm working with. They are exercising fasted. They're doing a lot of high intensity workouts, not eating enough, not getting enough protein, and not fueling for that specific hard workout. So we get to be in a low energy availability, reducing your thyroid hormones. This can lead to bone mineral density loss and exacerbate your symptoms of menopause. So Stacy Sims, in her research and her clients, 55% who are training every day in low energy availability. So you can read more about that. For endurance training means 4.5 to 7 grams of carbs per kilogram of body weight a day. Women doing moderate intensity or short intense days as CrossFit may demand 3.5 to 5 grams of carbs per kilogram per day. I don't know what that is in pounds. You can ask Siri. Menopausal women already have more anabolic resistance and trouble maintaining muscle. This is what I keep talking about. Doing keto and very low carb does not help. And this is why I think there's been a shift from keto to carnivore. Low carb availability impairs the feedback. We need to have those adaptations, increasing branch chain amino acid oxidation, eating enough, and I hate the word carbs, but nutrient dense, real foods, nature's carbs, I like to say. Eating enough helps us maintain healthy immune system and stress response to exercise. And I think everyone's different. I'm very carb intolerant. So I have to be careful because I'm more prone to insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes and my genetics. You can look at my report. So eating enough of the right type of carbs for me with some healthy fats, with some protein will help me balance my blood sugar. But what those are, maybe for me, it's some sweet potatoes or russet potatoes. I was trying to get more potassium, so I was doing more potato skins. Those are actually really good. Yeah, so looking at that, but looking at endurance training, how much that is, 4.57 grams of carbs per kilogram. I like to get my berries. I've been doing something new using that super gut yogurt. I was making high trillions of bacteria in there. And then I add some cottage cheese, which I haven't eaten for like 10 years. And fruit, I put berries. I haven't had fruit for years, except for berries. I can't do a lot of other fruit, so I'll get a headache. But I add some berries because they're in season, and get raspberries, blueberries, blackberries, organic, and then put them in there together with some seeds, walnuts. So maybe I'll have to calculate how much that is carbs. All right. So anyways, you can read the rest of this, but that was something, she's talking about supplements, adaptogens. I am a big fan of adaptogens as well. Creatine for sure. I think men and women, more women, we need to I have to remind myself I have it on the counter. Creatine, 5 grams a day to help strength, power, athletic performance. Because remember, I did in a previous video, when you're doing zone 5, what fuel source is used up here is creatine. So we need to have that, plus for the brain health, as we learned. Okay, so females, good for your brain health. Menopausal women say helps brain fog. So you can get on my full script supplements, creatine monohydrate, I think it's called. The 5 grams is 1 serving, and you can put that in your water. Tastes like nothing. So that was something I wanted to review. You can go into the links that Stacy Sims article has, the science, the research behind it. And then there's the article on fasting we can go into next time. Effects of fasted versus fed exercise, performance post-exercise, metabolism. This is where I like doing the metabolic testing because I can test that with people to find out, do you need to eat? What does your zone look like when you're exercising? Do we need to have more efficient fat burning? So to summarize today's episode is test and not guess. Do I need to increase my metabolism? How do I do that? Do I need to increase, go back to the page 1 on the fitness report, which marker? How do I do that? So you need to figure out the amount of time you spend in, say, zone 2, zone 4 or 5, and then resistance training each week, as well as recovery days, right? So you have some rest and recovery because we can measure that with your heart health, heart rate variability. So the combination of these 2 tasks will help us figure out where your area of opportunity is, what you need to work on. Okay. So VO2 max is one part of the puzzle. How much resistance training you need, how much you need to improve your metabolic health, right? So looking at metabolic flexibility, looking at metabolic health markers, looking at women at different stages in our life and our hormones, all that's important part. There's another article I want to go into about thyroid and adrenals. If you're if you're stressing your body, what happens? So we'll go into this another day. I pulled this up too. Stress, inflammation, this cycle we get stuck in. So this was a great article from Dr. Amy Myers, the adrenal thyroid connection. Also more on my website on what leaky gut is, signs and symptoms, and talking about LPS endotoxicity. Okay. So let me know what you want me to dive into on the next rabbit hole, and we'll talk to you next week. Thank you. We will stop and record another one later.